There you go.
Thanks, Andrea. Hi, everyone. I know some of you. Um, Audrey and I are going to do our presentation, Telling Meaningful Stories, Sharing the Impact of Library Business Services, and actually shout out to Andrea for naming this presentation. So thanks, Andrea. I really like the name. Okay, so for those that I don't know, I'm Megan Janicki with ALA's Public Policy and Advocacy Office. I was the project manager for our Libraries Build Business initiative, which is kind of what this resource that we're going to talk about today comes from. And I also oversee our digital equity and broadband portfolio and our economic opportunity portfolio. And Audrey, yeah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Audrey Barbakoff. So I was involved with this group and the Washington State version when I was the Community Engagement and Economic Development Manager for King County Library System a few years back. But then I hopped over into the consulting space. So I run CoLab Capacity, which offers community-centered consulting for libraries and social good organizations. So I worked with Megan to help create this toolkit.
So just to give a brief overview before we dive into the tool, just some context. Last year, as part of ALA's Libraries Build Business initiative, we co-created the Libraries Build Business Communications Toolkit, which is a free downloadable resource of templates and talking points that you can adapt and build upon. We're going to talk about how you can leverage those tools more specifically as we go. But just to back up a little bit, we want to talk about why communications and outreach matter in the first place. So at the heart of all of this work is relationship building. And to build those relationships, you need to be able to tell your story, respond to feedback, share examples and ideas, and try to connect with 4 key audiences: aspiring and existing small business owners and entrepreneurs. These are your potential program participants. Small business support organizations, who are your potential and existing partners, community leaders and elected officials, and library administration and staff. While this specific program, Libraries Build Business, and this toolkit focuses on communication efforts for small business work specifically, do know that the principles and foundations apply to other library programs in all aspects of library work. Talking about what you do and listening to stakeholders is integral to sustained success and growth. Telling stories about the library is good for the library and it's good for the community. This simple act can help people engage with your programs and resources. And the more you go out and share about the library, the more you hear what people need. These small library story conversations can be the building blocks to important library community relationships and the seeds for future programs, services, and opportunities. So first of all, who is doing business services and why? Everyone in this group, I think, but it's estimated that almost 1 in 2 libraries in the US already provide free service to entrepreneurs who wish to start and grow their business, and nearly all public libraries report providing economic and workforce services. So at the most basic level, services such as the library's internet connection, public access computers, and meeting space support entrepreneurs and business owners, and advance equity and inclusion for communities underrepresented in business. And this was kind of the heart of what Libraries Build Business was about. We wanted to demonstrate that any library, no matter the size or budget, can and should support small businesses and entrepreneurs. And really, for libraries with a limited budget or a limited staff, it's really this outreach piece. You already have the public computers, you already have the meeting space, you already have staff with expertise. So just making sure you have those connections. So it doesn't have to be complicated. You start with what you have, grow from there. And we have a number of free resources as part of the Libraries Build Business program to help you get started. We can talk about those a little bit more at the end. Yeah, good outreach and communications are a key step to getting meaningful services off the ground.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall narrative that we want to share. We're going to dive into what is the particular messaging for each of those 4 audiences that Megan referenced. But what is the overall picture that we want people to have? What do we want them to understand about the role of libraries? And it is that libraries help build vibrant community economies. So here's kind of the theory of change, right? How library services result in large scale or contribute to large scale impacts in the community. Because we want to get people out of thinking, just about kind of the specific individual services or resources, and instead to develop a mental model, right, of the library as a place that really makes a difference in our economy. This is really important in one of the, this is important for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons that this matters a lot is that when people hear about an individual service or resource, if it doesn't fit into their existing framework for what libraries do and what libraries are, it just kind of doesn't stick, right? It rolls off. So you're out there trying to tell people over and over about all of the great stuff that you're doing, that you're offering at your libraries. And you feel like sometimes, I know I felt this way, like, we keep having to tell people and tell people and tell people. I'm like, why doesn't this stick, right? Why don't people remember? Why don't people make this shift in a broad scale? So we want to help shift the mental model. So libraries offer all kinds of programs and services, right, to support local small business and entrepreneurs. And these can be very targeted, specific things like, business specific programming, like a social media marketing for your business program, right? Or a start a business boot camp kind of program. But don't forget that this also includes so many of the basic things that we offer, right? Internet access, printers, meeting space, right? So all of the things we do, like all of the resources and programs that we have, through these, we support small businesses and entrepreneurs. As a result of access to this kind of support, more local businesses start and succeed, right? They get going and they're able to stay in business. Overall, this benefits the entire community economy. It means more innovation, right? It means more jobs. Entrepreneurs may be creating jobs for themselves. They may also be creating jobs for others, right? And especially in smaller or rural communities where we hear about issues like brain drain, right? That young people move away because they feel like there's no opportunity for them in their own community. The more people can see themselves as potential entrepreneurs, or the more people have access to good jobs created by other local entrepreneurs, the more people are able to stay rooted in their communities. The vibrant small businesses that get started and are sustained in part with the help of the library, this supports a thriving community with a strong sense of place, right? It's that mom and pop retail kind of thing that makes a community feel like it has a main street, right? A sense of place. It's the kinds of things, even when we're not talking about brick and mortar, that give us a sense of identity, right? Of who we are, of this being a cool place to live. And then thriving communities, in turn, attract more residents, more companies, furthering even more economic development. So this is the model, and whichever audience you're in, there's likely a piece of this that really speaks to you.
So when you think of communications, what comes to mind? You probably think about marketing, promotion, and outreach activities, including social media campaigns, attending events, putting out flyers, contacting media outlets. These are all important components of library communications and building an effective strategy. However, relationship building is at the core of leveraging communications as a community leader. So through dialogue and cooperation, libraries can listen to and work with a variety of community stakeholders and cultivate a leadership role in advancing community goals and ideals. Good communication skills combined with persistence are an essential part of moving ideas from within library walls to making the library an integral, interactive, and responsive member of the community. To succeed, you will need to first let stakeholders know you exist by attending meetings and events, doing outreach, doing advertising. Second, tell stories that matter. So what makes a good story? As you think about telling your story, your library stories to various stakeholders in the community, make sure you are effectively communicating the library's value and the ways libraries can and do support the thriving local business communities. This could include quantitative data, such as the number of programs you hosted, the percentage of participants who said they learned something at your latest program, or how many referrals you made. And qualitative stories, such as a success story from a business owner who used a library resource, a quote from a program participant, or feedback from a community meeting about the library's work. Communicate your impact. And then finally, third step, listen and respond to feedback. Strong communication is just as much about listening as it is about speaking. And in order to perfect your pitch, you need to know what will interest your target audience. What do local business owners or potential library partners want and need? Do they have feedback about library programs and practices that could help you improve? Committing to having ongoing dialogue with stakeholders and providing opportunities to connect through those meetings and events, through social media, email communication, etc., keeps channels open for your library to collect information and feedback from the community, fostering understanding and mutual respect, and in the long term, cultivating strong relationships.
Is this on me? Okay, so just an overview of the comms toolkit. So the libraries build business. This communications toolkit isn't in a vacuum. It's part of, as Megan referenced, a bigger project. So some of the other elements of this are the libraries build business playbook and the highlights report. So these are about teaching libraries how to build and offer services, whereas the communications toolkit is more about how to talk about the services that you do offer. But know that if you're thinking about or you're looking for or wanting more of that, how do we actually, what's the right service for our community and how do we create it? And maybe some talking points about why is this so important? I recommend taking a look at the playbook and the highlights report. As this work was happening for the playbook, for the highlights report, one of the needs that was recognized was that it's hard for people to find time right, for promoting and talking about the work, right? It's hard enough to find the time to do it, but then also taking the time to put together a PowerPoint presentation and figure out who to, which community meetings to target and kind of getting out there. It was difficult for libraries to know what to say and where to say it and to create the tools they needed. So we did it for you. The communications toolkit has a lot of custom, you can download all of these tools on templates. They're customizable. You can make them what you need for your library. It's meant to be very plug and play to make life easy for you to go out and have these conversations and spread the word without necessarily needing to put a ton of time or needing a graphics department, right? Or kind of needing all that back-end support. The idea behind this is that having targeted communications should help increase awareness of what you're doing, which should help encourage use. But we also want to encourage partnerships and to help you facilitate information sharing between organizations and people in the community, and ultimately change those public perceptions, those mental models of the library. I'm realizing that I was relying on seeing our notes to remember which slide was which of us. So is this me? Cool. I thought so. Okay. So the 4 audiences that we're including in this toolkit, small business owners and entrepreneurs. So these are the people who are most likely the ones using your programs, services, and resources, right? These are the direct recipients. These are the people who might come in and say, right, I need some help finding some potential leads for my business, or I need to learn about social media marketing, or I need a quiet place to meet with a prospective client, and I need good Wi-Fi and a printer, right? So these are often your users, although in some cases they are also your partners. Then we have business support organizations, and these are not necessarily businesses themselves, but they are they're organizations that help other businesses. So your chambers of commerce, your downtown associations. We'll talk a little bit more about what these specifically look like in a moment, but primarily these are your partners. Right? These are the people that you might co-create a program with. You might offer a program with them, for example. They are also referral partners. They can help spread the word to the small business owners and entrepreneurs that they work with and support about what you have. Elected officials, community leaders, and funders. These may or may not be folks who use what you have to offer, but it's very important for them to understand it, to see your value, and to provide political, financial, right, support and advocacy to be library lovers, to be library advocates because of the work you do in small business. And then library staff, recognizing that often there's one or two people or one department in a library that's really focused on this work. But the understanding of what the library offers and for who and why it's important can sometimes be limited to that staff. So you also need ways to talk to your colleagues so that they feel comfortable, they understand what is available at the library, they feel comfortable talking to patrons about it, and they have buy-in for what you do.
Okay. So we're going to dig into those 4 audiences more specifically and the tools that we have. So the first one being the small business owners and entrepreneurs. So yeah, these are people who own, run, have started, or are considering starting a business in your community. You want these folks to know about, talk about, and use library resources and services and programs, for them to give input or feedback on the services as part of that continuous improvement loop. And maybe as potential partners, maybe there's a business, a small business person or an entrepreneur that will offer to be a speaker or a mentor in one of your programs. Or maybe they can hang a flyer about your resources in their shop, something like that. The key message here, the library can save your business time and money. So just a few of the tools that we have available. And again, these are all downloadable, free. You can adapt them with your logos and branding. You can adjust them with, of course, your actual talking points. So everything is fully customizable and we want you to use it. So please use it and make it your own. We have a 15-minute PowerPoint presentation template. It's called "This Presentation Could Save You $6,000. We have an email template for cold calling, a sample press release, sample social media posts. We have talking points that you could use at meetings or as part of the PowerPoint presentation, and then a sample newsletter and blog or blog blurb. Here's just some graphics of what these look like. The sample social media are down here at the bottom, and then the 2 slides are some examples from the "This Presentation Could Save You $6,000 template. And as you can see, everything highlighted in yellow there is instructions on how to build your own slide deck. So we do have instructions for everything so that you can work with the fonts and the template and make sure that you can get your branding in there. So at the conference, what we did is we had everybody break and talk to their neighbor. I think that could get a little messy here, but I do want folks to take a minute to think about how you would pitch to your local small business community. And then if anyone wants, we can save a minute or two to have a whole group conversation. No pressure to share a full pitch, but if anyone has ideas about the kinds of things they would want to share with their business community, yeah, we can do that now.
And I'll jump in and encourage people to also share in the chat as well. If you want to take a minute to just sort of write out, like, what is the messaging that you would use?
Audrey and Andrea, I don't have, since I have the slides up, I can't see the chat as well. So if there's anything that comes up, just read it out.
Not yet. So we can just let people kind of think about that and contribute in the chat, and we can keep rolling.
Okay. Yep, sounds good. All right.
Time.
Over to you then, Audrey.
Okay, so we're going to talk now about business support organizations. So as I alluded to earlier, like these can be a lot of different things. They may be governmental, like a local SBA office, and they may be kind of organizational, right? They can be educational, so they might be attached to, say, like an SBDC attached to a community college, for example. They may be cultural, so you may have a nonprofit that exists, for example, one in my area, there's an organization called REWA, the Refugee Women's Alliance, that does many, many things for refugee women that are new to the area, one of which is workforce development, including small business, right? So there might be things that are cultural organizations that have an economic development or small business arm. They may be nonprofit, things like SCORE. We have an organization where I am that offers sort of like 6-week classes in Spanish for people thinking about starting a business. These can also be social things like 1 million cups that get people together, right? That don't necessarily have, or green drinks, right? That don't necessarily have an agenda, but are just getting entrepreneurs together and helping them network. So when we meet with people who are affiliated with business support organizations, our primary goals are education and awareness, referral, and partnerships. So education and awareness, we want them to know what we have to offer. Right? We want them to be aware of the library as a potential partner and as a potential resource for not just for them, but also for their clients, right? We can help them extend their impact. For example, if you have a really great database that helps entrepreneurs, something like Data Axle or Reference A to Z, right? That helps people find marketing leads, or you have something like LinkedIn Learning, right? That helps people get access to good quality training. And that's something they can offer to their own clients that doesn't cost them anything, right? So you want them to be aware of the kinds of things you offer. It's maybe a little less important that they know like about the very specific programs and individual resources, but you want them to be aware of the kinds of things that you have. This is also a really great cross-referral relationship. So often programs, business support organizations and programs are time limited in some way, right? You take a course that exists for a certain period of time, or you have a mentorship that lasts for a certain period of time, or that covers kind of one narrow aspect of a person's business experience. So when we get outside of that, whether it's after the program ends or whether it's about something that's a little more than what the program offers, it's partners, the support organizations want to know how they can help people continue to sustain what they've learned, right? So being able to send them to the library to say, you can keep developing this, you can keep learning more by going to the library, they can refer to us. Similarly, we can refer to them to say, okay, now this is a question where maybe the best resource for it, right? Sometimes the best resource is a book, and sometimes it's a website, sometimes it's a database, and sometimes it's a person or an organization that we're able to say, it sounds like what you really need based on your question as a subject matter expert, and here's one over here, and we can facilitate that warm handoff. And so cross-referral. And then potential partnerships, if you're offering business-specific programming, services, resources, business support organizations are your most likely partners, right, to come in as a subject matter expert. For example, if you're teaching, you want to offer a small business startup class, you may bring in someone from a business support organization to do some of the teaching, for example. So the key message for these groups is that the library can help you build your client base and serve your clients better. So here's a snapshot of some of the tools that are available with this organization and are for these types of organizations, and you'll start to see some, some themes here. So another 15-minute presentation, but this time with a different focus. So this one is called Your Library Builds Business, right? Insert the name of your library here, right? An email template for introducing yourself and the library to these organizations. So kind of to take the fear out of kind of cold calling. A leave behind, which is a flyer template for why these organizations should partner with the library, what they would get out of a partnership, what the goals of a partnership would be, how you can help each other. A set of talking points, some tips for connecting with these organizations in the first place, and another leave behind a bookmark, so something, you know, really easy, something people can keep handy, that shares some of those evergreen library resources. So again, here is sort of a snapshot, just a little bit of a closer look at aside from that PowerPoint, and also the flyer. So partner with your library to support local small business, and you can see really clearly, right, where you can stick in your own library's name. This is all customizable, right? There's a quote here to help tell a story. There's some contact stuff, so you can take what's here, or you can customize this to reflect what you offer, in particular your library. So I'm going to ask you the same thing, and we did see as people processed a lot of really great discussion in the chat last time about the messaging that you would use for small business owners. So we want to ask you the same question related to support organizations. So what is the message that you think would be most effective for a business support organization in your community? And take a moment to just share that in the chat.
One thing that I was thinking about when you were talking is that if a business support organization is looking for speakers for a meeting, that by having a relationship with a vendor for a product, if they can come and do training, sometimes they really appreciate that, because then that can bring people in for the organization you're partnering with, but then you're also sharing information about the resource itself that the library wants people to use.
Mm-hmm. That's a great thought.
I feel like folks who are maybe in the banking industry, they have to do community service type outreach. And so helping them understand that doing a presentation at the library or working with libraries to offer those kinds of resources, presentations, or any kind of collaboration could be beneficial and help them achieve those hours, and then gives a new audience to them, that maybe new clientele, new customers. So I don't want to be totally marketing and kind of slick, but I think that there are some ways that they could be partnerships. Excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure you're thinking of banks in this category. That's an excellent point. And you're right that they do have, I believe in all states, some kind of legal requirements to offer non-sales education. So that's a great idea.
Okay, should we move on to the next audience? Next up, we have elected officials, community leaders, and funders. So this could be at kind of this local, state, regional, national level, elected officials, county level, grant-making organizations, donors, formal and informal community leaders. I think for a lot of libraries, this can sound like a scary or intimidating group, but thinking of the library itself as a leader and a stakeholder in this space, it makes sense to build these relationships. And you'll see with talking to leaders, of course, that you are working towards a common goal. So in terms of communicating with this audience, your primary goals are education and awareness. You want them to know what the library is doing. You want them to be impressed by what the library is doing. You want them to be able to talk about it when they go out and do things. So just kind of that knowledge, like the library has all this great stuff for all these different people. Support and advocacy. So again, you want people to be champions of the library. So again, when they're going out and talking in meetings, when they're thinking about the budget, when they're thinking about funding opportunities, you want them to think of you. You want them to think about what the library is doing to make introductions to potential partners, potential funders, that kind of thing. So you just want to kind of be at the forefront of their mind, and that for them to know that you have common goals. So the key message here is the library helps you accomplish your goal of a thriving and resilient local economy for all. So some of the tools we have available for this audience, again, the 15-minute presentation template, Your Library Builds Business. You can use this at Rotary or Service Club meetings, at local conferences or convenings, other public events. I just used it at the U.S. National Council of Mayors, which was in DC in January. And I just did basically this, by the way, the slides that we're using today are one from the template. So hopefully you like the way they look. But yes, I just used it with the Council of Mayors, and it was great. It was a really good, thought-provoking conversation that came from that. An email template to raise awareness, a flyer or a leave behind template. We have what we call in our office here in DC, our happy brief, which is one small business at a time. So a happy brief is a very short policy brief with lots of good news and good stories about the impact libraries are making. So this specifically about how libraries are supporting small business and entrepreneurs. And we have examples from all over the country, really amazing impact stories. So that's a great resource to leave with decision makers. And then a tip sheet on building relationships with elected officials, and a worksheet to help you ID those local leaders and who you might want to reach out to. A couple other images here. So the leave behind documents, a return of investment on libraries, and then the tips on building relationships. We will do it again. We'll take a minute just to think about how you would effectively communicate with your local community leaders. Think about it for a second. Feel free to unmute or to put any ideas into the chat about what you would want to talk to them about, or a pitch you might have. And we'll move on after just a minute or so.
So I'll just read out a couple of things that are coming through in the chat. Demonstrating effective partnerships among county agencies for mutual success. And libraries help the local economy by helping people find work and create work through small business research and development.
Yes, awesome. Great, thanks for sharing those, and feel free to continue thinking out loud in the chat. And I think, Audrey, we can go to our final audience.
And so our last audience is your colleagues, library staff. And this is folks you work with who aren't directly connected to small business services. But it's still really important for them to understand and have buy-in around what you do, around what the library does related to small business. So we want everyone on staff, especially those who work with patrons, but really everyone, because we are all called upon to sort of speak for and about the library in many aspects of our lives, to have general awareness of who the library can help and how the library can help. And in particular, we want them to know where to look or who to refer to for more information. So the key message here is that you don't have to be a business expert to help business owners. You just need to know where to go for support. A lot of folks on your staff, a lot of your colleagues who don't necessarily work directly with small business can sometimes feel intimidated about the idea of answering business questions. Or might feel like, oh gosh, that's not something we can help with, right? I don't know anything about business. But this is true with any kind of reference, right? People come up and ask us questions that we don't know the answer to all the time on a variety of different topics, from medical to legal to tax to all kinds of things where we are not the subject matter experts and shouldn't necessarily even be giving advice, right? So business is not scary. It is just reference. So we want to take that intimidation factor out for our colleagues, and just to say, it's okay. You don't have to be a business expert, right? No one is asking you to be a small business expert. And you can still help business owners. what anyone on staff needs to know, whether it's a page or a clerk or just those people who are frontline folks who might be the first ones to receive a question from a patron. Just know where to go for support, right? Have a general sense of the kinds of things the library can do, and know probably who you are, right? As the folks in this room, like you're probably the expert on your staff. Make sure they know that folks know where to look, whether that's like on your website, whether that's connecting you personally with someone. Just make sure that staff have a general sense of what the library can do and what the next step is to get follow-up. So tools we have for staff, some talking points about library business resources, real world examples and stories, right? This is a great way to take out that intimidation factor, just to make it more concrete. And oftentimes when people see and hear, right, here is how a library really has or really can help, right, really has helped someone, then it's like, oh, well, that's the kind of thing we do all the time, right? That's not actually very scary. We've also provided a sort of a job description for a volunteer role if you're bringing on volunteers to help with your small business programming. Program evaluation resources to see how you're doing and continuously improve. And then there's an asset mapping tool, and this lives in the staff section because it is something you would do with staff, but it really is about all of the audiences. So asset mapping is a systematic way of thinking about and discovering who the leaders are in your community, in this case around small business. So identifying, right, who are those individual small business owners and entrepreneurs who people turn to, who have a lot of visibility, who are trusted. What are the major support organizations in your community and how are they connected to each other? Right? Who are those elected officials and funders and community leaders? So this is a way of mapping out who is out there in your local ecosystem and thinking about the relationships between those people and organizations. So ideally, you would do this with your staff, with your colleagues, because everyone has a unique perspective on who's in the community. We all have relationships and networks. Regardless of what your position is in the library, right? The more diverse perspectives we can get, the better picture we're going to paint of who is out there, who makes up our ecosystem. So you can engage your colleagues in having this conversation, and that can also help them understand and be invested in your small business services. So for the last time, we will have you think about the kind of messaging that you think might work best with your colleagues. And just take a moment, either jot your ideas down in the chat or go ahead and unmute and share.
I don't think we have to belabor, but keep the ideas coming in the chat. We're almost done with the presentation and we can move into like just general conversation and Q&A. So this QR code will take you directly to the LBB Communications Toolkit. It's also on our website, or reach out to us if you have any trouble finding it. We'd love to point you in the right direction. But we're happy to take questions now, or actually maybe we want to get through the last couple of slides and then we can take questions and I can take the slides down so everyone can see each other again. Okay, we're going to do that. So just quickly, these are the other Libraries Build Business resources that are available. First of all, we have the Libraries Build Business Playbook, which was a collaborative effort of the 13 public libraries that participated in the grant program. So it includes all kinds of strategies, models, ideas, inspiration for getting a small business program off the ground, or maintaining and scaling it, evaluating it, thinking about equity, diversity, and inclusion. So definitely check that out. That's also available on the website as a free download. In tandem with that, we have the Libraries Build Business community. So we host monthly meetings on Zoom, much like this, where we have someone come and talk about what they're working on in their library. Very informal, peer-to-peer. Great opportunity to get to know others working on business services specifically. And we also have a Slack discussion board that's associated with that. That is also linked on the website, but let me know if you're interested and I can get you plugged in there. And then finally, the one on the left, we worked with ALA Editions last year, 2022, I think, put together a book with how-to sort of from 26 public libraries from around the country that submitted chapters of kind of step-by-step what they were doing for their business communities. And this looks different all across the country and in tiny libraries and huge libraries and rural or suburban or urban, whatever. So there's a lot of great stuff there. That's available through the ALA store or for purchase anywhere where you normally purchase books. And then here is our contact information. Thank you very much. And yeah, I think I will end the slideshow and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Megan and Audrey. This was really great information. And even though I knew some of this, it was still, I was taking so many notes and learned so much. So thank you. And yeah, anyone have any comments or questions? I know that some of you, I'm especially interested in hearing what you have to say and how you might be using this information in your own libraries, because I know you're doing a lot for your business community. So.
So I just wanted to comment one way I'm kind of hitting two of these audiences at once is that worked hard. It took years, but we have an organization called Launcher, which has been doing programs in Delaware for a long time. It's a national organization and they have multiple locations in Delaware. And I've been speaking to their classes for several years, to each class, and presenting to them. In fact, I'm doing it tonight to one of their classes about resources in the library. A lot of what I talk about is online resources, as I maintain a LibGuide, LibGuide, whatever page, well, actually a section that I talk about. But we finally got them to start holding the classes in libraries. So they had, it's in some cases new cohorts, and sometimes it's ones that were meeting somewhere else, and they actually moved them into libraries because they finally got it of how much there is in the library that these people could be using. So when they asked me about doing my regular presentation, I said, yeah, I'll do it, but we're going to add on a tour. And so I got somebody from library staff, and in every case, they were very concerned. They, didn't want this public speaking thing, but without exception, at the end, they went, that was so fun. And they really liked it because all the people were so engaged. And part of what's important is to translate for these people what like how they would use some of like the general resources. So my background is business development and economic development, and so I'm a contractor to the Delaware libraries. I'm not a librarian. I really don't have any library background other than I've been working with them for several years. But I tell them, like show them the study rooms, and that's okay that we call them study rooms. So we need to tell them that if they have a home business and they can get someone else to watch their kids for a couple hours, they could come here, be uninterrupted for 2 hours, have the fastest Wi-Fi in the state, and get in 2 hours done what they would get done in 3 or 4 hours at home. And they go, oh, like both sides, both the librarians and them, that's one of the things that I find it is like librarians speak library and the entrepreneurs speak small business, and it's not the same language. And so you do, because they're listening to what you're saying and they don't necessarily have the ability to translate it, and things that the librarians think everyone knows they have, and everyone knows like how they would use it, you know, even things like we have in every library really high quality scanners with big platens, you know, like they put pretty big documents on. And they're free. And, you know, you can go directly to a thumb drive or email the document or whatever you want to do. And it's great that phones can do it now. But if you've had the document folded up for 3 years, getting it to lay flat to be able to get a good scan is, I mean, for me, it's just doesn't work. You know, like I'm going to the library and sticking it on the plate, you know, there to make it happen. So it's kind of like both sides, you know, are kind of like wowed all at once, you know, even the one giving the tour, because they can't believe how responsive the group is and how excited they are about what they're seeing, because they really don't know what's in there, even though by the time I get there, they've already been in the library for 6 weeks. So any opportunity to take people on a tour, whether it's business or not, do it.
Love it. And that point about language, right, is so essential. That I like the way you put it, like we speak library, right? And they speak business. And so it's not always obvious, right, what how our resources can be used. So being that translator, so important. What else? What questions do folks have, or how are you using some of these or talking to some of these audiences in your community?
I guess I have just a question as far as communicating with stakeholders like the government programs and everything of that nature. Has or has anyone had luck in trying to communicate as part of this as the economic development piece of library services to their communities, as communities are quote unquote questioning the whole value proposition. Have there been has there been anyone able to sell that point?
Yeah, so I think our template that your library could save you $6,000. So that has some of the info on the return on investment. There are some, I think we quoted as $5 back for every dollar invested in the library, but we saw a study that's up to like $9 back for every dollar invested in the library. So those are cited in there. I know St. Louis County has been super successful. They put together like a small business value calculator that's the way they talk about their program, is like you could save, I think their number is something like $13,000 per entrepreneur per year. So really incredible. And that's the way they've been doing their messaging to the community. Like, you know, you don't need to do market research and pay for it. Like you can come here, an expert will help you do it. And we already have, you know, all the subscriptions, everything you need for that. That's the example that I have off the top of my head. I don't know, Audrey, if you have anything else you would say, or if that answers your question, Mark.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess I can add. So I run the Workforce Center. I'm a career one-stop. Actually, I am admin analyst for the city of Burbank, part of the library administration. And something I do is I do both career one-on-ones with people that come in, but I'm also the business outreach. I'm kind of a one-man workforce right now, being that we don't have a workforce librarian that's been vacant for years, a workforce library assistant been vacant for years. And so what we've been doing is, we've thankfully have a resource room that we offer to small business. We have an alignment with SCORE. I actually go out to the Chamber of Commerce. I'm part of an initiative there. I don't know if you can hear me better now that way. It's one of those things where I go to the small businesses. I actually connect with our economic development department, right? We're just another city department. So I actually get, as new businesses come up on the roll, I actually get that list and I just do a cold email and say, hey, anyone who is looking for new employees, I just do a cold email and just say, we can advertise your job listing for free in a physical binder that goes to all of our branches. That's one way we've been trying to get, at least the new businesses getting to realize that, hey, we're here and we're ready to help as much as we can. Otherwise, it's just chamber mixers, trying to just get our names put out there more. But then also offering, thankfully, a space where if they needed a meeting room, we have a meeting room specifically for our workforce center. So it's if it's an entrepreneur or a job seeker wants to do an interview, that room is available just for them. That's aside from our standard meeting rooms.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
I also want to highlight some of what's going on in the chat. Joy's sharing, I'm going to use this toolkit to address ISP hiring managers in Washington and share the value of Washington libraries and their workforce resources like certification. And Lisa sharing, the Maine State Library recently awarded subgrants from the State Department of Economic and Community Development to several libraries around remote workers in libraries. And then some discussion around how that's going, and Lisa shared a link to an article about it.
Awesome. Yeah, I know some of you are at the state level, so yeah, it would be so great if you could share this out with local libraries, public libraries in your state, because yeah, these resources are for everyone, and I think especially helpful for small libraries who might not have a comms department that could put together a flyer or talking points. So definitely spread the word.
And seeing some thumbs up to that in chat, people saying they will share in their states.
Jesse, where did you say you were again?
So city of Burbank, Southern California, dealing with the studios that just probably won't actually talk to me.
Got it. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions or thoughts on how you would use this, or feedback on the tools, or feedback on, how any of this could work in your state or other resources that you would need?
Well, I didn't see this question come through, but I'm sure that it is on people's minds. Are you going to share your slides?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So I'll make sure to send them out to everyone so that you have, if you weren't able to use the QR code, you can use the links, and you can get Audrey and Megan's contact information if you didn't get that down, and get in touch with them as well. So your last chance to raise your hand or put in chat, but I'm going to thank everyone for being here today. And remind you that LibsWork gets together on the second Tuesday of every month at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully you can do the mental math if you're not on the East Coast about what time that means, but same time, same place. We'll be meeting May 14th, and David from the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library will be talking about their workforce development initiatives there. So really excited about that. David, do you want to give us a little sneak peek?
I don't know. No, yeah, I'm just going to share
You may
some
not
of
be
our.
ready for it.
No, I'm going to share some of our workforce stuff. We've had quite a journey with workforce development at Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, so I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but you will get more details probably than you want to know. We also have our Welcome CLT initiative, which is a newcomer welcoming initiative. We've been going on almost 10 years now. And then we have a really robust digital literacy program, and I'll share all of those, and then talk more about some details. Like we have a really engaging volunteers program where teens can volunteer at the library and get workforce skills while they're volunteering, as well as our efforts into our reentry population. We're part of the oldest reentry network. Our reentry network in Mecklenburg County is the oldest one in the state. So we're really trying to work with our justice involved individuals, and we've become really more cohesive lately. So I look forward to seeing you all next month, same time, same channel. So appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, and it sounds like you have a lot, we every time we talk, you kind of see how there's so much overlap, and it seems like you've got a bit of everything. So thank you for the plug. And speak now or forever hold your peace. I think we're there. So thank you everyone for joining this week, or this month. And I will send out the reminder. I will send out the recording later on this week. And have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful rest of your week. Bye, everyone.